Happy September, Dragons. This is Ms. McShane, and today's Pride lesson will continue to focus on college planning. You may just be a ninth grader and just starting to understand what the Hope Scholarship really is. But because every grade you earn can impact your eligibility, I want you to be empowered with knowing how to manage your classes. You may actually be an upperclassman and still not sure how to check your eligibility. Or you might be a senior and not know how to access your Hope Scholarship. If you're thinking that you might go out of state for college or go straight into the workforce or military after high school graduation, this info is still going to be very important for you to know and manage. Because over the years, I've seen some things. So, for example, you may attend college out of state but decide to transfer back to the state of Georgia, in which, if you did, you could still access your funds. I've experienced athletes who went to play out of state, got hurt, or decided the program wasn't for them and transferred back to a Georgia school, and they still had access to their Georgia scholarship. Hope tuition funds are accessible for up to 7 years after you graduate high school. Life circumstances might change from today, and this eligibility can give you another option to reduce the cost of college. Now, tuition rates have been pretty stable over the last couple of years, but right now, tuition rates are really scheduled and expected to probably start going back up. This screen right here is a great tool in which I sent you the link at the end of the presentation. This is a college cost calculator, and you can input in up to two universities to compare the cost of the colleges, in state or out of state. In this case, I picked the very popular University of North Georgia and, of course, the University of Georgia. In the very top row across is tuition and mandatory fees. So if you skip down to that third row, the average scholarships and grants, that's probably speaking about what Zell Miller Scholarship or the Hope Scholarship might offer to students as long as students are eligible. So, again, this is a great tool that kind of gives you an idea if you're going to live on campus, have a meal plan, what your books and supplies might cost. It's really nice to play around with and get a full understanding of what the college costs are. So let's talk about exactly what is Hope Scholarship. You can access all of this information from the georgiafutures.org website. Once you access that website, at the top there'll be a tab that's labeled Hope and State Aid Programs. Once you click that, you'll find the tab listed Hope and Zell Miller Scholarship. You'll also find a tab that says Grant, but today we're going to talk about the scholarship and we'll focus on what the Hope and Zell Miller grant is on another Pride lesson. So, the Hope Scholarship is basically a Georgia scholarship that helps reduce the cost of college tuition. It's earned during high school by meeting certain academic criteria. And the only way that you can really, quote, apply for Hope and Zell Mill, if you can even call it applying, is to complete one of two financial aid applications. You have a choice of either doing the Georgia State Financial Aid application or the FAFSA, but you can't do this until your senior year. The criteria for Hope Scholarship includes graduating from a public high school or an approved home study program, and earning a minimum of a 3.0 GPA, which is a grade point average, in your core academic classes. So, your core academics consist of your math, science, social studies, and English classes. You also will have to earn credit in 4 courses of rigor. Now, rigor can be a little confusing because we use it to describe a lot of different things. Most of the time, when we think of rigor, we think of challenging classes, and that can apply to this as well. But the Hope Scholarship clearly defines rigor as specific classes that you can take in high school. So, for example, any AP, advanced placement class, or dual enrollment core academic class is considered a class of rigor. In your math program at Jefferson High School, that includes advanced algebra, AMDM, pre-calc, calculus, statistics, or a higher math. In the science category, you have lots of choices to choose from. And what I love about this is look at the computer classes that count as rigor classes. You have web development, game design, cloud computing, programming games, and apps and society. World languages, and again, those computer coding classes can also count as a world language too, but you have to take 2 years of a consecutive language. So, for example, Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, that first year of Spanish will count in your HOPE calculation for your GPA, but it's not considered a rigor class until you take the second year of Spanish or higher. So, some things that you should know about the Hope Scholarship that are some frequent points of confusion is that you can earn Hope when you get to college. If you did not earn it in high school, there's still a chance for you to earn it and use it for at least 5 or 6 semesters, providing that you maintain eligibility. So once you get to college, about every 30 hours or checkpoints, they will check just to make sure that you have maintained your 3.0 in order to retain your Hope Scholarship. So if you don't earn it in high school, all is not lost, but you will have to pay out of pocket for tuition for at least 2, maybe 3 semesters because it's not a retroactive scholarship. You will need to maintain that 3.0 collegiate GPA to continue your scholarship eligibility. And your Hope Scholarship is really cool because it applies to both an associate and a bachelor degree program. So if you wanted to go to a technical college and get an associate degree, you could. If you wanted to attend UNG and do the Pathway Associate program, you could. It pays up to 127 semester or 190 quarter hours, which is more than enough for you to earn a bachelor's degree. If you combine that with dual enrollment programming in high school, dual enrollment will pay tuition for up to 30 hours, which equals to about 8 to 10 classes, depending on the type of classes that you take. So that's almost 2 free semesters of college that don't even touch your Hope eligibility. So you can have that on top of your 127 hours and once you get to college. So in the past, the Hope Scholarship has paid anywhere between about 80 to 90%, so about 85% of the whole tuition cost at public institutions. So private colleges do pay at a little bit of a different rate, and I'll show you a link where you can check that at the end of this presentation. This year, there was some legislative change. So for this year's freshman class in college, the Hope and the Zell Miller is actually paying both 100% rate. So that's a first in the last decade or so that has happened, but that doesn't mean that it's going to continue. So that legislative action has to renew each and every year. So the criteria for Zell Miller Scholarship, again, you have to graduate from a approved public high school or home study program. But the grade point average is a little more stringent. You have to have a 3.7 minimum GPA in your core academic classes. You also have to earn the credit in 4 courses of rigor, like the Hope Scholarship. The other component is a test score. You have to have a 1200 SAT or a 26 ACT and a one-time test administration, which means you can't super score in order to earn this. And then as a senior, you have to take an extra step and upload those test documents into your portal at georgiafutures.org. So please hear me. If you have not already completed your student account in Georgia Futures, do that now. Some things you should know about Zell Miller. So, Zell Miller is a little different from Hope eligibility. You cannot earn Zell Miller in college unless you have met the eligibility criteria by the date of your high school graduation. It cannot be earned like Hope can once you enroll in college. So, if you don't have it on the date that you graduate, unfortunately, you're not going to be eligible for it at all. Eligible students only have to maintain a 3.3 collegiate GPA to continue the Zell Miller funding once you're in college, which again pays 100% of your tuition. So if your Zell Miller eligibility is not maintained, students are eligible for Hope if you have a 3.0 GPA. So let's say, for example, you get to college and that first year is pretty rough. Maybe you're not paying close enough attention to your grades and you're a little too much social activity there. And let's say that you have a 3.2 instead of a 3.3. You're still going to be eligible for the Hope Scholarship, just not the Zell. But here's the cool thing. Just like the Hope Scholarship, at a certain checkpoint, you can regain it, but you only have one chance to regain it. And if you lose it a second time, unfortunately, that is it. So let's move over into the different types of the ways grade point averages are calculated for different purposes. And because this can be super confusing for students and for parents. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see the point policy for Jefferson High School. Now remember, every local system has a different weighting system as well as a grade scale. So at Jefferson, we have 90 to 100 is an A, which is going to equal 4 points. 80 to 89 is a B, that's 3 points. 70 to 79 is a C, gets you 2 points. Anything less than a 69 is 0 points. So this example that we have over here is a 10th grader who for one semester has ELA 10, got a grade of 90 at the end of the semester, which gives you 4 assigned points. Moving on down the line, we've got geometry for an 89, in which it gives you assigned points of 3. And let me talk about those scores that end in the 9. What I have found is many times the teacher gave that student a little bit of grace. They probably should have gotten a lower grade, but an 89 might have been a gift. It's so important to keep track of your grades throughout the semester on your Infinite campus, because if you are nearing the end of that class and you're hovering around that 88 to 89, really need to step it up on your final exam or whatever it is you need to do to try to move it to that next mark, because there's a big difference between that 89 and 90. Psychology, this 10th grader got a 99, which was 4 points, and again, a 95 in weight training, another 4 points. So the average for the points assigned is a 3.75. So the grade gives you a numeric percentage score of a 93.25. And Jefferson will use that numeric percentage for rankings and things like that. But if we look at the points assigned, is that average making this student Zell Miller eligible? Yes or no? What do you think? No, because if you remember, only core academic classes are going to be configured into the Hope calculation report. So if we take out that A and those 4 points for weight training, it drops that student's points assigned down to a 3.66, which is still a great grade point average, don't get me wrong. But when we're talking about Zell Miller eligibility versus Hope eligibility, this student, as long as they meet all the other criteria and continue on this path, will more than likely be Hope eligible. So let's look at these 3 unique examples that I see quite a bit on students' hope calculation reports and can sometimes result in some very painful conversations towards the end of senior year. So up at the top, we have a 9th grade student who has earned 2 Bs and 2 As. And so if we look at that core academic, they have 3.5 GPA. Are they hope eligible? Yes, all things considered, that grade point average is meeting eligibility. The 11th grade example in the middle, we have 2Bs, 1C, and 1A. But again, that point assigned average earns a 3.0. So that junior is hope eligible, but they are on the borderline. So they're going to have to make very, very sure that any core academic they make in the future is at least a B. If they get a C, they really need to get into that counselor's office and do some calculations to see what they have to earn in their remaining coursework to preserve that hope eligibility. That's going to be very super important for y'all to remember. Let's look at this senior down at the bottom. So this senior has 12th lit, got 2 C's, a B, and an A. And so even though the numeric grade percentage average is the same for the junior above it as below, it's still an 86.75 for both, the point assignment changes everything drastically. So this senior earned a 2.75. The student is not hope eligible. It's going to be very difficult, especially if this is the end of their first semester of senior year, with the time remaining that they have to pull that up to a 3.0. So again, this is why it's so critical that every semester you're checking your hope calculation report, talking to your teachers towards the ends of those semesters, making sure those grades are right where you want them. If you skip over to this little information panel on the right, the calculation starts as soon as you begin ninth grade. So ninth graders, if you earned high school credits in eighth grade, those do go on your high school transcript and do go into your overall numeric rankings, but they do not count on your HOPE GPA because by law, it can't start until the first day of your ninth grade. You can begin checking your HOPE GPA through your My Georgia Futures account starting in 10th grade. So ninth graders, what we'll work on the remainder of the year is you'll have some worksheets in which you'll hand calculate that GPA for HOPE eligibility to make sure you're right on target. All right, so let me blow your mind a little bit more because I know this is a lot of information, but it's good stuff. So this is how weighting systems vary between systems and between different agencies such as HOPE and for college admissions and NCAA, and also within Jefferson High School, there's even an unweighted and a weighted grade point average. So let's focus on how a weighted grade point average at Jefferson can translate into a Georgia or a HOPE calculation transcript. So over here on the left, we have a looks like a senior, who has AP Lit and earned a grade of 85, had a dual enrollment econ class, got an 85, had an 87 earned in a Jefferson High School honors pre-calculus class, and got a 100 in the AP computer science class. So if we look at the added points, so all AP classes at Jefferson High School are given an additional 10 points on the grade that they earned in the class. Okay, that's a local rigor weighting system. Right now, dual enrollment core academic classes do not receive any weighting at Jefferson High School. Honors classes receive 5 additional points. So if you look at this student, they got 10 points for the AP Lit, 10 points for the computer science, and 5 points for the pre-calc honors. So their final Jefferson High School grade ended up with a numeric percentage of a 95.5. And these are the points that would be assigned. And so that student is a 3.75. Zell Miller eligible? Let's double check. The way the Hope calculation report works is they strip all local system weights from all of the grades. So the student will end up with the grades that they actually earned before they got the extra point weighting. But there's still something additional that can happen. So if a student took an AP class, they will be assigned an additional zero point 0.5 through the Hope calculation report. So instead of getting a 3 for the 85 or the B, they ended up with a 3.5. Now, here's the cool thing with the dual enrollment economics class, because the state weights them and gives them a zero point 0.5, they also got an extra zero point 0.5 for their points assigned. The honors class, those 5 points were stripped, and so they ended up with a 3 for their points assigned for that class. And because one of the caveats with this, if you have earned a 4.0 for that class designation, they will not give you an additional 0.5. So 4 is the maximum number that you can get. So even though this student got an amazing 110, still got a unweighted 100, the max they can get is a 4. So that took their points assigned Hope calculation report to a 3.5. So over here, if we're just looking in Infinite Campus, it would appear that that student would be Zell Miller eligible with their grade point average. But in reality, the way the weighting system works, they are at a 3.5, which means they're Hope eligible. I know this is very confusing. We're going to do a little bit more planning with our senior and junior class on weightings as we go through the year, but I want you to have a good heads up and a thorough working knowledge of what this looks like. So if you're feeling confused and overwhelmed, please don't stress. Again, we're going to help you. You've got lots of student service support with your counselors. But one thing you can do to help yourself is to continue again to check your Hope calculation report from your student account. Make sure your social security number is accurate and up to date. Otherwise, you won't be able to see this report if you are in 10th through 12th grade. If you feel your GPA needs to improve, talk to your teachers, go see your counselor, reach out to me, and map out some goals and some support for yourself because this is really attainable. Most of the time, I see that students are getting goose eggs or zeros for not turning in all assignments. It's some weird habit that some students kind of pick and choose which assignments they think are important to turn in. They don't realize how quickly that can take what you think you're getting A's on for what you do turn in can knock it down to a C average really quickly if you're not turning in all assignments. Attendance matters. If you're sick or have an emergency, we totally get that. But if you're out for things that could be avoided, sometimes we get in survival mode. And so we start picking and choosing the assignments that we think have more weight. We're not getting the content that we need to do well on tests, and it is showing, especially in that Hope eligibility. And I can just tell you, it may not matter if you're in 9th and 10th grade sitting where you are right now, but that second semester of your senior year, when you've made plans to go to college, but now you're struggling to try to find the tuition difference from other sources because you're not eligible, that is a heartbreaking conversation. And we want to avoid that because we know our students are more than capable. So links and resources. I've included some links for you here that you can look at what makes up the whole rigor course list. You can look and see what the award amounts are for the payout on the Hope and Zell for private and public colleges from the second link. The third link is if you are a senior and you're wanting to upload your SAT or ACT scores, that link will show you how to do it. And then this cool link at the bottom is the Georgia Degrees Pay. That's that little cool tool where you can look and compare tuition costs for in-state and out-of-state schools. Listen, I know this was a lot of information today, and those GPAs can get a little complicated, but again, we are here to help you. And I appreciate your time. And Dragons, I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thanks for hanging with